So our next character on the Why Is It Easy or Hard to Make a Game Of series is one that you suggested, and that's Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. We're going to be taking a look also going forward at not just DC heroes, but also breaking down the abilities of the Marvel heroes along with DC in different videos, and focusing on both for this series. And even some of the more independent superheroes, if you want to see, definitely leave them as suggestions. So, Daredevil, Man Without Fear. He is really cool. He's kind of undersold by the Marvel publishing house for some reason. Like, he did finally get his due in the Netflix TV series, which is fantastic. You should definitely check it out with Charlie Cox. It's a great run for the character, and it really is an awesome way to sort of break into understanding who he is. Now, Daredevil's abilities have changed over time like any comic book character, so I'm going to go through a little bit of what he can do, why I think it would be easy for them to be a game for him, and what the challenges would be. I think the first thing to note is that Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen is a really awful place to live, but it's not much worse than, or I would say it's probably around the same-ish as Gotham City in terms of just like the violence and what goes on there, and there's, I'm sure, going to be arguments about that in the comments down below, but either way, either one of these settings is very brutal and dark and has a lot of crime and violence going on. I do think an M rating would fit Daredevil a lot more than a T, but just like the earlier Batman Arkham games, you could certainly get away with a T rating. So if Marvel wasn't willing to jump that boat, and actually go with the M, I think this could still be made. Daredevil is extremely acrobatic. That's one thing that would work very well into this. He's, I would say, more acrobatic than a lot of the heroes we've seen actually on screen for video games so far. So if they could play that into it, it would definitely work. And he uses hand-to-hand combats. Yes, he is good with long-range weaponry like guns if he wants to use them, but really it's the batons, everything that he works with normally. And he's really awesome. I nerd out a little bit about Daredevil because I think that he is one of these street-level heroes that doesn't get the credit that he deserves. And Batman has shown us in the Arkham series that any street-level hero really should be able to be made into a game if they're interesting enough. And I think Daredevil is. He has like an actually cool rogues gallery. You obviously have people like Bullseye, but the big one is the Kingpin. And Kingpin did play a major role in the Spider-Man PS4 game, but whether or not you wanted to make this in that same continuity and sort of go with the Marvel Games universe, which you should, that's literally like printing money. Why would you not want to do that? Or you want to go off and make it your own thing. Either way, that would work to have Kingpin come back and be one of the main behind-the-scenes villains that Daredevil has to work against. In terms of his abilities themselves, other than just the acrobatics, we also have his blindness or his sight and how that would play into gameplay style. This is where I think that certain, like, actually unique aspects of the game would come into play. It would depend on how gimmicky or non-gimmicky Marvel would want to be with it, though, because Daredevil, as you know, is blind, but he can still see. And how does that make any sense? Well, in the comics, it's always sort of shown as this sonar vision, this radar that he sees, where he doesn't see in specific details at all times, but he sees outlines, and he sees specifically enough to know what's going on, with all of his senses extremely heightened due to what happened to his eyes, with the entire origin story. And if you wanted to, not only could you play that origin story of his father into this angle and sort of show how he was blinded when he was younger, since that actually has not been done to death in live action media, unlike someone like Spider-Man or Batman where we've seen it 100 times. You could sort of play that into the eyesight thing, show how this develops over time. If you want to, you could have him training and growing, or you could start him off as established. I think you would just have to decide how you want the player to see the world. Daredevil's appeared in a lot of games other than just his not amazing Game Boy Advance title based on the Ben Affleck movie. He has shown up in stuff. They very rarely actually show anything, though, from his view of blindness. It's just third person. You sort of see things above him or behind him, and you would play it like you'd play a normal Batman Arkham game. So the question is, do you want that blindness to play in like I don't know, detective mode on 24/7? Do you want something like that? We have seen actual games come out that show that blindness works like with a gameplay style like that in recent years, but I don't know if Marvel would want to go all in on that or not. You could also go in on the world on fire aspect from Daredevil, the Netflix TV series. But again, I don't know if Marvel would really take that leap, or if they would just see it as gimmicky, or if the players would even connect to it, or if you would want to have it be a toggle, where it's like you as the player see the Hell's Kitchen in detail from behind Daredevil at all times, but you can also see it from his point of view. I don't know. You would have to basically... if you did the world on fire, I think it'd be a lot harder. If you did the sonar version of this, you could sort of just put that filter over everything where it kills all detail and just shows it in the sonar purpley pinky color. I think that would be the easier way to do that. I do think that if you don't show the details of Hell's Kitchen though, it does lose some of its impact. Just because Daredevil can't see the way that we all see in the comics, it doesn't mean that the readers don't still get that impact of the story and of the details. Like, not every panel is in blind, as I would say it, or in, his radar sonar vision. And I always call it the wrong thing, so that's my bad. But it's hard to do that, I think, aspect, and sort of hard to commit to what you want to do. So that's one thing where I want to hear what you think about that. But I do think in general, this character does support a game or a game series or something standing in a Marvel Games universe, because he has the villains, the rogues gallery. He definitely has the combat abilities. His abilities are interesting. You can have him even use his lie detection if you wanted to play into this like LA Noire style. You could sort of tie in the Matt Murdock, the lawyer aspect of this. That would be where I think this could be fascinating. I don't think that this should be Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, but just like Peter Parker plays a heavy role and really does sort of fit into and enrich the Spider-Man universe, other than just from Spidey's point of view, seeing things from Peter's point of view definitely enriches things and fleshes them out. In that same way, Matt Murdock, seeing things from his point of view from practicing law, also does sort of flesh out the world that he's in. I don't know if you'd want to do that in terms of just cutscenes, but if you had something where you could take part, maybe in some sort of legal cases, that actually would be pretty neat. People are going to say, oh, that sounds boring, but that is a main part of the Daredevil Matt Murdock character. I don't know why you wouldn't want to go in on that. And frankly, it's also an easy way to cross him over with other characters. So like, let's say you make the Daredevil game, and you have bits of it that are LA Noire-y, whether that's like you interview someone and you listen to see if they're lying in order to figure out a crime, sort of like Daredevil's own version of crime scene investigation, or if it's like you going into the courtroom and actually practicing law in some limited fashion. I think that would definitely build this world out and make him more interesting. But what I said about tying it into other games is true. So if you do that, then let's say down the road you have the sequel to Spider-Man, or you have, I don't know, a Punisher game, and one of these characters is arrested and put on trial. How do you bring Daredevil into that universe to show these things happen in the same continuity? Well, look who someone's defense attorney is. Matt Murdock. That's a fantastic and natural way to sort of cross over properties without just doing throwaway lines that sort of hint at it, that I think would make things feel more lively. And I think that's a hard thing that games have had issues doing, is having everything take place in a shared universe. Maybe that's because it hasn't really ever been necessary. But I think that the only language a lot of these companies really hear a lot of the times is to say this would be financially successful. And you can't tell me that a Marvel Games universe wouldn't be wildly successful just like its cinematic universe has been. Obviously, cinema is more accessible, much less of a buy-in, but think about it. You have all of your favorite heroes, either Marvel or DC, it doesn't matter which we're talking about, in one universe. Like if it's Marvel, you have Daredevil, the Marvel Spider-Man, you have the Avengers, like the new Avengers game. You have all these characters in the same universe. Maybe you have a Ghost Rider game. Whatever you want to do, all of a sudden you have infinite crossover abilities. It's like it's printing money. And that's not all the consumer cares about, but that's definitely something that the games industry looks at. And I don't understand how that idea couldn't be instantly picked up and ran with, especially with a character like Daredevil, who has such a variable degree of being adapted to different media. His powers vary depending on what version of the character we're looking at, and the fact that he has so much brand recognition right now through that Netflix TV series that really put Daredevil back on the map. So hey, let me know in the comments down below what you think. Would you play a Daredevil game? Would you want that? Why do you like or dislike the character, and what are your thoughts on this? Definitely let me know. I'm interested to hear back. Hey, if you enjoy what you see here, definitely consider liking or subscribing. It helps me out a ton and keeps you in the loop for future videos. And I will include all of the resources, the links down below to things like Instagram, Twitter, everything down there. I'll be seeing you online, guys. Have a fantastic day. Appreciate all of you.